Entrando em contato com atendimento ao cliente... Para muitas pessoas é um jeito fácil de arruinar um bom dia. Mas na Zendesk, nós deixamos a experiência do cliente melhor. Melhor para sua avó, melhor para o seu vendedor preferido de flores, melhor para o cara do apartamento 3A, melhor para você, melhor para todos. Porque enquanto alguns dizem que o cliente sempre tem razão, nós dizemos que o cliente é sempre humano. E, como seres humanos, queremos fazer algo melhor para todos nós. Zendesk, experiência do cliente com IA desenvolvida para humanos.
Estou passando nesse podcast para dividir uma informação que fez toda a diferença na minha vida. Quer fazer pós-graduação, mas tá impossível correr de um lugar para o outro?
Pois é, ainda mais com o trânsito.
Então você precisa conhecer a educação à distância do Senac. Sabia que é nota máxima no MEC? E tem diversos cursos de pós-graduação para te levar ainda mais longe. 100% online, sem necessidade de TCC e com acesso direto a todos os professores.
Ah, saber isso fez diferença sim.
Inscreva-se já na pós-graduação EAD. Quer saber? Senac EAD.
Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode, and I've got Jackson Calame for you today, and he is the host of the Vision Pros live podcast. He's here today as a guest, and he's got sharing wisdom as a visionary leader, sharing growth principles, methods, and resources. It's going to be a really interesting conversation for the audience. I'm really happy to have Jackson on the show. Welcome, Jackson.
Christopher, thanks for having me, man. This is going to be awesome. Two Texans, how could it not be?
Yeah. Start off by introducing yourself and we'll dive right into the conversation.
That sounds great. My name's Jackson Calame. I'm the founder of First Class Business, fashionpro.org, Oportunidades de Trabajo para Latinos, opportunities for third world individuals, and of course, Vision Pros Live. We've got 5 hosts for that show now. Different format. We're building a media company, not just a podcast. And so there's a lot of opportunity. I love to maximize life. Abundance comes in many forms. We've got 4 children. I'm a single father. So their ages are 13, 10, 8, and 3. So I keep my hands busy and I haven't been bored since I was like 17 years old.
Yeah, really inspiring. One thing that you mentioned in the intro was, you're building a media company versus just a podcast. What does that mean and dissect it in terms of revenue growth? And I'm just for my own curiosity.
Of course, man. We have all the tools that ESPN and CNN and Fox News have in our hands. It's like in 2010, when I joined Own Local, it was a startup of ours that was invested in by Paul Buchheit, the inventor of Gmail, and Matt Cutts, the search director of Google. We were Y Combinator. At that time, 2010, if you can remember back that far, we had yellow pages and white pages, and we had the internet, and the internet was eating newspapers alive. They needed digital revenue streams. So the same way that Blockbuster got eaten alive by Netflix, right, Amazon Prime, the newspaper industry is being eaten alive by these online directories and these online advertising opportunities. Now we have all the tools to eat Fox and CNN alive and say, you know what, let's all change the way that the media is done. And look no further than LeBron James and JJ Redick with the Mind the Game podcast. They took control over their narratives. They allowed people to connect directly with their messages. It created a new level of freedom of communication. And at the same time, you want to look at businesses that are successful. The media industry does quite well in terms of revenues. So a lot of reasons to be in the game.
Yeah, interesting. I was recently after the one presidential debate, people started to be like, yeah, the media is just a crock of shit. But talk about this idea of power branding, and you emphasize the importance of being a power brand in the market, and how can businesses, especially startups, begin the journey to establish themselves as a power brand?
Absolutely. You know what? I'm going to hit something hard that people don't want to hear. And so plug your ears if you're sensitive. If you have a book on the market that you've published and you've got less than 15 reviews on that book, people notice. Everybody sees it. You got to be careful with the type of marketing assets that you create. Right? If you go on TED stage, the TED Talks, and you end up having some of the least amount of views, dude, those are 2 massive flops that are unforgiving in nature. We mess up on a podcast episode, that's all right. We'll produce more podcast episodes. So being a market leader is about moving away from the need to pretend, to fake it till you make it. There's so many people out there who feel this need to protect where they're at. And we do have to protect ourselves. We got survival instincts. The economy's hard right now. So there's a lot of difficult things, but that doesn't drive happiness. that level of growth doesn't make you feel good. It doesn't inspire great people to want to work with you. It inspires you to attract people who are also being inauthentic. So power leaders, to me, being a power brand is about actually authentically having what's called case studies. Not 2 sentences where people say they like you, but people who are like, hey, this is a transformation that I went through by working with these individuals. And that usually takes some grit. It usually takes some hard work. And we're looking for leaders who are powerful enough to want to face the reality of life and build something that's awesome for others.
Mm, yeah, really fascinating. It's almost like the unique power of one, and you want to be a big fish in a small pond and dominate your industry. The other thing is business failure. And these days, tons of people are starting businesses. And however, 96% of businesses fail in the first 10 years. What are some of the most common pitfalls you've seen that lead to this, and how can businesses proactively avoid them?
Let's tie 2 subjects together. So one, I think one of the greatest problems is entrepreneurs feel the need to dominate. Let's look at The Lion King, right? The hyenas dominated. That was their plan, was let's just dominate the whole Pride Lands and ruin the life cycle that exists, right? A lion doesn't have to dominate. It just is dominant. It just is. You don't have to roar at a gazelle for it to be scared of a lion. Like that's it. So yeah, I do have a presence, right? And podcasters like yourself, we do have presence about us. We have strength. Force is unnecessary, right? So if more leaders would just step into the strength of self-confidence, right? Of understanding the value that they put out into the market, creating case studies, creating actual results with people, then they would have an incredible transition take place within that leads to different results on the outside too. So it's not really that complicated, but neither is doing 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and 10,000 steps per day. That's still hard to do, even though it's simple.
Yeah.
We got to embrace what's hard.
Yeah. It reminds me of this really good quote, which is be versus do. And,
Yeah.
being is like you've already embodied it. You don't have to show, or you don't have to you're already there. Whereas, do is like you have to, hustle and, to get to that point. Yeah.
There's a story about that. Have you ever heard about the bricklayer story?
Share with the audience.
Sure. An investor comes and he's walking through this building. They're building a temple. And the first person he asks, he says, what are you doing? And he said, I'm making $5 an hour. Let's update the story a little bit. I'm making $20 an hour. It's economies of scale. Things have changed with inflation. So the next person he asks, what are you doing? And the person says, I'm laying bricks. Duh. And the third person he asks, what do you do? And he said, I'm building a house of God. Right? They're all doing the same thing, but they all have different realities of how they feel about it. So I see a lot of people doing the coaching work. I see a lot of people doing it based on fear, because they know they have to provide. I see people doing it based on duty because they know that they should give back. But then there's this next level of doing it out of love because you love what you do. Right? I'm very blessed to be able to love what I do.
Yeah. Yeah, I really love that. It's very impactful. The next question you talk about is visionary leadership. And how do you define what a visionary leader is, and what qualities are essential for leaders who want to build a lasting legacy in their industry?
Yeah, Christopher, I used to be a bad leader. I was a really bad leader. I would take control of people's visions. So everybody on earth to me is a visionary. Everybody's got a vision. Sometimes the vision's as simple as the cows I see across the street on that beautiful farm over there. Sometimes the vision is, how can I serve others? Sometimes the vision is, how many selfies can I take in a day, right? We get to control where we put our focus and what we want to do with our time in our life. A visionary leader is one that's got a vision that's serving others, that's designed to help other people get from a point A to a point B. So many coaches, you want to find a bad coach, listen for the ones that turn to words like, Christopher, you have to do this. Toxic, I'm done. Yeah, you can't do that. Once again, bad coach. Listen for the one that said, you really should do. What are you, some kind of oracle? You a genie? No, those are controlling words. And we use them on ourselves. We use them on others. I finally learned to let go of controlling other people's visions and appreciate that if I can help people inspire them to gravitate towards their own vision and dig internally for what they want to accomplish, who they want to serve and help, then I can become an assistant or a guide, somebody of value to help them build something that's cool and amazing for others. But the moment I try to take control over that, it's the moment that I fail and it's the moment that they fail. We're not designed to control each other. We're designed to be free and to create and to respect the freedom of others. So visionary leaders, they're doing just that, whether it's a plumber who's helping people with the stuff we don't want to talk about, or it's a psychologist who's supposed to be helping save marriages or help kids, or whatever you're doing to help others should be valued.
Yeah. It's like this, I think it's power versus force. And a lot of I had another guest talk about the Gen Z cohort and how they're starting companies and changing the world. And this idea of a force doesn't resonate with them. And it just doesn't. Yeah. The other thing is you talk about balance, and what role does a holistic approach play in achieving impactful revenue growth? And how can businesses make sure that they're being holistic?
Once again, probably not super popular on this opinion, but I don't think it does. So the idea of being holistic is for me, it's closely tied to the idea of acceptance and gratitude at its core, right? Being willing to understand that, look, I could be the best farmer in the world. Again, I'm loving this farm across the street, but I could plant a great field. I can have awesome animals. I can have even diversity, and an act of God, as I would call it, or just sheer dumb luck, if you want to call it that, can wipe the farm, and a tornado can come and wipe that whole thing out. And so I don't necessarily get to experience the fruits of my labors, if you will, not always in the instance. And I think most of us as entrepreneurs, if we're going to build holistically, we have to be willing to let go of the outcome and focus on are we doing the reps? Are we doing the things necessary in order to build towards that type of outcome? If we get the outcome, awesome. That's fantastic. We can celebrate that. If we don't, are we willing to celebrate the transitions, the changes, the transformations that we've made within ourselves and be happy with that too? It's a tall order to ask of others, but that's my ultimate focus is, did I do my best today? Did I do everything that I needed to move my life forward? And if I did, then there's a saying, there's actually a great talk on it, come what may and love it. I've learned to really gravitate towards that. And sometimes it's really hard if you're going through divorce or if your kids are angry at you, or if I haven't had that part yet. They might be this Friday, they want to go to a football game. I said, no. So we'll see how mad they are when they come. I don't think they will be, but if they are, to be able to meet them where they're at, to be able to discuss that as a family and see, hey, can we overcome this together? And then hopefully we will be able to, but whatever the outcome is of that, to learn to just appreciate it and realize that it's contributing to my greater good and the greater good of those in my life. I wish more entrepreneurs could focus on that, because as entrepreneurs, we are powerfully leading the world. We're leading others, and they will follow our examples. And the people we serve, they deserve for us to care about, what's most important in life.
Yeah. Really, moving on, this idea of marketing versus distraction. And you mentioned tackling revenue problems of distractions called marketing. And what are these distractions, and how can businesses focus on more reliable growth strategies?
There's far more strategies associated with taking care of people than just saying like taking care of people matters. I don't see a lot of entrepreneurs studying the strategies of taking care of people and what that means. Everybody assumes I know how to do that. No, that's the curse of knowledge. Careful, right? When we actually really want to move the needle, TikTok's not going to do it for you by itself. YouTube is not going to do it for you by itself. Defining your audience because some marketing guy tricked you into focusing on, sorry, but the fable, there's no such thing as a marketing guy. It's called a department. The department is made up of multiple people. So if we focus again on these external vanities, the theatrics of the house, but we don't help our team or ourselves or those that we serve focus on why. Like Simon Sinek says, why are we doing what we're doing? What does it mean to become as you talked about. I love that principle. It was a huge life shift for me. But Raving Fans is a great book that kind of helps dive into the why a little bit better in a practical way. 1 Minute Manager, another great book that dives into that. Peak by Chip Conley, another phenomenal book that kind of dives into that. And as you learn to scale, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni, phenomenal book for helping people get centered on dynamics that just, again, too many entrepreneurs want to put that stuff to the side and say, you know what, let me just take my next 20-minute meeting and see if I can gamble with somebody who's cheap and try to put a cheap trick into reality. No, it's the opposite of what Peter Drucker says in The Effective Executive. He says, spend 3 hours per week minimum with your effective executives and really dive in to the nuances of what it means for growth. So if you're not doing that, you can throw your hands up and say, I don't have the time for that. Or you can say, wait a second, we all have 24 hours in a day. Am I making time for what's most important? We got to make time for what's most important if we want the results to change.
Yeah, I love that. And I know you have, because your time is very valuable and you also host a podcast. As the host of Vision Pros Live, rounded out with most inspiring stories, lessons you learned, influence your own business philosophy. And what are your goals for next year? What do you want to make an impact for the audience?
I hope you hold me accountable to it, Chris. So let's check back in a year and see how we're doing on that. So Vision Pros Live, first-class business opportunities. Again, I would love to get to the point where we can do projections and not BS it. Swag, scientific wild ass guesses. That's what most of the business world practices. And it's interesting. We just hosted on opportunities. We have a Spanish podcast now, right? And one of my brand new digital ambassadors, I'm talking untrained virtual assistants, she hosted the show. Her first guest, this is within 6 weeks of ever learning about podcasts, right? She'd never even seen a podcast before. She hosted Kike Inglés. Kike Inglés has 900,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Wow.
Imagine that being your first podcast. I would have peed my pants. And now he's all excited. He's, wow, look at what's being built. And we've got opportunities growing in India now. We got opportunities growing in the Philippines now with my team out there. And so a year from now with traction, I have no idea what to expect. I do know that we've got to build the infrastructure to respect all the people that we want to help. I do know that as we hit these thresholds of, if Kike decides to put that out there, I know Alma, La Teacher Alma, is what her name is. She's already putting stuff out about us because she had a great experience. She doesn't have 900,000, but she's got a pretty big channel. And I don't know what to expect in terms of what's going to come from that. All I know is if we're getting to a point where our grip is slipping on how well we serve others, it's time to cinch the hose. It's time to shut the doors a little bit and take care of those who are within the house. And then if as a team, we're like, you know what? We're ready to go to the next level. Our procedures are working. Our resources are effective. Our templates are in order. We can train people to do these things. Then we uncinch the hose and we say, now let's grow a little bit further. It doesn't, quarterly expectations, man, that stuff's, that'll eat your soul alive. To be focused on that. That's an entitlement, expectations, entitlement. That's all super toxic. We have it within us. I want it to. But I have to learn to control that. And I have to say, you know what? No, I'm going to hope for the best. I'm going to put the actions in. I'm going to take care of my people and the rest will come. We're top 10% now globally. I don't really know what that means, but we've been out for a year and a half as a podcast. And really we look at the numbers because we're not irresponsible, but we always are looking at every day and every guest I ask right after the show, what can we do to make this experience even better for the next guest? And these days I have to say, I know it's awesome. I know you're going to say it's great. I don't want that. I want to know, is there anything you can think of that we can do better for the next guest?
Yeah.
Man, the silence is awesome. But you finally get into their ideas. I'm like, okay. Yeah, awesome. We can do that. Let's move towards those things. I'll give you one example. Back in the day, we did a pro bono account with Restaurant Connect. I'm a junior founder of that company. And we took on the Masters Tournament Augusta. We paid a ton of money to win this client. What? Yeah, we paid a ton of money to help the Masters Tournament, and we had to design features. We designed this feature to where when the guest paid their check, the system would send a text message to the valet, letting the valet know to go get the car.
Oh,
That way, the guest is walking out, their car's already ready to go. They're not waiting at all. And it was that passion and dedication that Adam had as a main founder of that, and that he instilled in me to let's do everything we can to take care of people and build a magical experience. That's what Ken Blanchard wrote about Raving Fans. And it may not lead you to be Jeff Bezos, but it might. And more importantly, I just love it. It's just fun.
Yes.
I want to show up in life.
Yeah.
Desde 2019, a Toyota vem acelerando o futuro, produzindo no Brasil o primeiro híbrido flex do mundo. De lá pra cá, as coisas mudaram. Muitos entraram na tendência que a gente criou. Mas sabe o que não mudou? A confiança do brasileiro na Toyota, que não veio da noite pro dia. Toyota, no futuro há muito tempo. Paz no trânsito começa por você.
How can people find out more about you, check out your podcast, reach out to you and so on?
I hope you join me, Christopher, as a guest. It would be awesome to have you. Vision Pros Live. Doc, you got a vision out there. Again, you could be Jeff Bezos. We welcome you to come. As long as you respect the platform, you respect the audience who want you, you could be a stay-at-home mom, right? Your mission has nothing to do with business. It may have everything to do with just running the best home you can. Bring that vision. Come share that. That's important and valuable to the world. There's a lot of visions that matter that are often overlooked because they don't come with cheap sunglasses and fake planes behind you. And it's like, no, that stuff's not the important stuff. What's important is how are we showing up and helping? If you got a vision like that, come and join me on Vision Pros Live.
Yeah, I love that. I really enjoyed this inspiring conversation. I love your energy and the work that you're doing and creating an awesome value for the audience. And for the audience, be sure to check out Jack resources, which will all be in the show notes. Give his socials a like and follow, and keep up the great work.
Dude, you're like the coolest financial guy ever. We didn't even talk directly about finances. So I appreciate your balance and leadership, man. This was amazing.